Encina is living with dissociative identity disorder. We talked about her background, her initial diagnosis, and recapped what it's like to live with DID. Tell everybody a little bit about your life. Let's start with where you grew up.
So I was actually born in Riverside, California.
Oh, right here, baby.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I grew up in Goodyear, Arizona.
Okay.
So at the time, Goodyear was like nothing but cotton fields. But yeah, that's where I grew up. I lived in this one specific house for like, I think it was like 13, 14 years or something. And then I moved all over Arizona.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned in our premiere episode that you're not working.
Yes.
But you have been working in the past. What has your work history looked like in relation to DID? Like, what have you been able to do and not do?
So when it comes to working, I can technically do any job.
Okay.
Like it's not like I'm being held back from anything because of DID. It's right now I'm not working because I was hired on as like a seasonal person, but I actually had to go on medical leave for the depression.
Right.
So that's the only thing that's really kept me from like really getting back in there.
Right.
But the types of jobs that I've done, honestly, like because I'm so into art and creativity, I've kind of bounced around a lot, and I've done a lot of different jobs that just kind of made me curious.
Yeah, yeah.
For example, like I don't eat seafood. I'm not a fan of fish or like anything like that, but I loved the art of sushi.
Yeah.
So I became a sushi chef for a little while.
You know, just like on the
just
side.
to do it. I wanted to learn how to make the sushi, and I loved how they looked, and that's what got me into it.
You kind of have this soul that goes with the flow. You have a flow soul, like just whatever suits your fancy or whatever catches your interest, you go into that. Where do you think, or where do you hope that type of mentality will take you in your life? Because that's a very exciting way to live, I think.
So I mean, I'd love to be. I'm really into art. I'd really love to be able to do some kind of like at-home work where I'm just creating all the time. You know, anything that I've done has usually been about just creating something. Yeah. So if it has to do with me doing like do-it-yourself projects, I'm like, yes, like that's right up my alley. So as long as I can do something like that, I think I'll be like so happy, you know, like hopefully.
Yes, good, I like that. Now, your DID diagnosis came in your early 20s. Remind our viewers on what led up to that.
So honestly, I'm not really sure like how it like led up to it. It was more, I had all these other things that I was kind of struggling with. My mom thought I was just this troubled teen, didn't know what was going on. And because I was having so many other things, it was starting to like stress me out. And then I think that's where a lot of the symptoms for DID started coming out, because a lot of people mistake thinking that once you have DID, which you get it from a child as being a child, but
well, it occurs during your childhood.
Yes, you get it when you're a child, and as you're growing up, you don't always have symptoms. So some people are like, I got DID when I was 13, and it's like, well, that's not how it works. It's like you still have DID when you're younger. It's just your symptoms started coming on at that time. So my symptoms started coming on in my early 20s, and I had no idea what was going on. I was confused. You know, when I was actually diagnosed, I was very much like, no, that can't be a thing. Like, I can't be trying to share my life with other people. Like, what's going on? Like, I don't think so. And I was very in denial about it. But the more I tried to deny it and push it down and like hide it, the more the alters were like, well, I'm going to test you. Like, I'm going to come out. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it got very hectic. Like there's times when I like lost days where I was like, I would think it was Monday and it was really like Wednesday.
Because you've been in alter for the last 2 days. So what brought you into that doctor's office, and what did that diagnostic process look like?
So I was there actually for depression, and it's somebody that I was seeing out of her home, and she was, you know, such a sweetheart, and she ended up moving, unfortunately, so I wasn't able to continue care with her. But I was seeing her out of her home, and again, just kind of going through regular talk therapy and stuff, and we were doing some CBT stuff, as well as, I forget what it's called. There, basically, like, she had these, I put in these earphones, these headphones, and I was listening to like these binaural beats. Like, they're like these specific tones that you listen to that help to like make you feel better and things. And I was really anxious at that time, and she explained that basically I turned into somebody else. And I started talking to her as someone else, and she was like, "Oh, okay."
And
let's
was
figure
it
this
Minnie?
out. No, she said it was an older woman. I don't know too much more about that, honestly. Like,
Maybe Devin?
It might have been Devin, since she's one of the people that comes out a lot. But otherwise, like, yeah, that was just kind of how it came about. And then as I started to, you know, accept that this is what it is, I started to, you know, try to educate myself as much as I could. I tried to follow other people on YouTube who had like DID and like wanted to learn about like their life and like how they were kind of going through stuff. And I found a girl who was going through all of the DID things, and she was explaining, oh, well, I communicate to my alters with like a journal. And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. I'm gonna try that. So I tried it, and we did it for so long, and it was, yeah, it was kind of mind-boggling, like seeing these responses just appear. And you're just like,
read them as Encina.
Yeah, and I'm like, whoa, like it's almost like as if you were like, there's a ghost in the house, and like, I'm gonna write the ghost like a letter, and
the ghost responds.
The ghost responds.
And there's actually 11 ghosts.
And there's 11 ghosts, yeah. So
that I just really understood.
Yeah.
I really felt that. I get that. Do you still communicate with the other alters?
Not as much through, like, I still use the journal with, again, the alters that I'm not co-conscious with. But they're very settled now, if that's the right terminology. They're not as active as they used to be. So whether or not like some of them or a majority of them have integrated into one another, or they're just not being active, like I'm not really sure. For like my main alters that I am co-conscious with, I still like see that they're there. So I'm like, oh, I'm not like cured, like type of thing. But I see that they're there, and I see that, you know, Minnie is still wanting to come out like every day and stuff, and she still wants to play, and but they're just not as active.
How do you feel about that?
So I have mixed feelings with it. I love it, and I don't necessarily hate it, but I kind of miss it, because once you live a certain way and you have these, like, they're almost like friends that you're just like, you don't want to start to feel like crazy or anything, but you can talk to these other people within yourself. And, you know, when they're not as active, especially Minnie, like I'm so close to Minnie and I just hold her so dear, that when she doesn't come out as much, I'm like, oh, like I miss that sometimes. Like, I'm really not a kid person, you know, like I love kids and I love them like this, but I don't know how to be around kids. So it's kind of different with Minnie being inside me, to where I don't have to try and like pick her up or like, you know, because I feel like I would drop a kid. Like, so does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
As much as any of this.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why we're having the conversation, to educate ourselves. When you say you talk to them, is there internal dialogue going on?
So
like,
it can be internal or external.
Okay. So you could just be in your car and in your head saying, all right, well, Minnie, simmer down, or Devin, what are you doing, or whatever.
Yeah, like if if there's something that's happening, a big trigger that Minnie used to have was anytime I was around like an ice cream shop, she would jump out and get really excited about ice cream. And I had to try to like settle that down, because when you're around people that don't know that you have DID and this little girl comes out, ice cream, and she's super excited, you have to be able to like communicate that with her and stuff. So I started recognizing that that was one of her triggers. And I would start to feel like a transition was going to happen, and I could tell it was Minnie. And I can internally say, not right now.
But you can also say not right now and get overruled.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It can definitely happen.
Wow.
But again, like, I feel like I've gotten like a better understanding and a better hold on how all of it works and stuff. And basically all of us kind of working as like a team, instead of being like, well, I need more airtime, like type of thing, In
addition to having DID, which is obviously a challenge itself, there are co-occurring disorders that you have. One of them being major depressive disorder with mixed features. When were you diagnosed with that?
So honestly, it kind of came about with, so I was diagnosed with that one specifically, actually pretty recently.
Oh, okay.
So I want to say they just added on the mixed features. It was, I want to say maybe 6 or 7 months ago.
Okay.
But it all kind of started coming about when I was about like 13 or 14, when I was diagnosed with PMDD.
Which is?
Premenstrual dysphoric disorder.
Got it, okay. And you also have cPTSD.
Yes.
Complex post-traumatic stress disorder. What is that?
So how I would describe it is basically like PTSD is when you go through one severe traumatic event, whether it was like a catastrophic like hurricane or like somebody like abusing you in some way, but it's like one thing and you have PTSD from that one like thing. cPTSD is when you've gone through it multiple times. You have reoccurring traumas, you have a lot of different like things that have happened to you over time. So it becomes complex because your trauma that you've gone through has been so much more severe, I guess.
What was your trauma?
I mean, I've had a lot of traumas ever since like I was a kid. Like my dad and his friends, this is where my DID came from, ended up like raping and like molesting me. I've had a lot of like abusive relationships and stuff. My dad actually at that time was very abusive to my mom. So my mom told, I don't remember this, but my mom told me that I like watched him like drag her down the hallway by her hair, and I was like chasing after them trying to protect her. And so I've gone through a lot.
Have you gone through everything you think you need to go through to heal as much as possible from that?
No, I'm still going through the healing process. I'm still trying to find things that'll work for me. I've been in therapy since I was like 6 years old, I think. And it's still a continuation of what is going to work and what isn't, what medications are going to work, what isn't going to work. And so it's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of testing and trying and work. It's a lot of work. And I think a lot of people, they give up, or they don't go to the doctor because they're like, well, I know I've got issues, I just don't want to know about it. And right now, like I want to know because I'm desperate to heal.
Have you always been desperate to heal, or is that a new?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you believe that you will?
Lately, I don't know anymore.
Why do you say that?
I'm 30 years old, and I've been in trauma therapy, treatments. I've tried medication after medication. Because of the mixed features that I have, they found out that I'm not supposed to be on antidepressants because that can make things a lot worse. It was kind of like described to me as if like you take these antidepressants and you feel better about your plan to commit suicide if there was a plan, which I don't have a plan.
Wow.
So, and that's usually what would happen with people. And they're like, yeah, so you can't be on antidepressants. So I have to be on, and again, just to kill the stigma, because it's called an antipsychotic, which does not mean you are psychotic.
I understand that.
So either that or like a mood stabilizer, or one of the both.
And you're working with psychiatrists or a psychiatrist?
I'm working with multiple of them because I was working with one, and she was out of town. Like this was like over the holidays and stuff. She was out of town, and they had to cancel and reschedule my appointment so much that it was going on like, it was going to be like 2 months when I was going to see her. And I was like, I was like, I need something now. So that's actually when I went into like the inpatient place and like had all of that going through. But now I'm seeing a new psychiatrist because she ended up going to like another facility. And I'm seeing how this is going to go. It's really frustrating when, you know, you don't have consistency. So that's really what I'm looking for right now is consistency. When I get like a therapist, like I want a therapist that I can stick with, you know, see my progression with, and not have to reopen all these old wounds. And okay, I'm meeting someone new, so I have to explain every situation again.
Right.
So.
It's so good that you know that though. Most people do not understand how to do therapy.
Yeah.
They go in it very blind. They go in it very uneducated. It's not their fault. It's just the way the system is right now. And they go to a therapist. One, they don't interview them. If they don't like them, that doesn't matter. They stay with them, and then they have a bad experience and just think, well, therapy doesn't work. Yeah, because and it goes, no, that therapist didn't work for you and what you needed. And it is a testing, trial and error, perseverance, a relentless pursuit.
It really is.
In your mental health is key in going through therapy.
If you want to heal, you have to fight for it.
Oh yeah, say that again.
You have to absolutely fight for it.
Yes.
And that's what I've been doing.
Yes, good for you to do that. How do you know, why do you know that and so many other people don't?
Because I want to, basically, I explain it like, I want to live.
I want to live. Oof.
I've struggled so much for so long. I just really want some relief.
Yeah. In the life where you're not struggling as much, where your struggle is what we consider normal struggle, what does that life look like?
Disneyland.
Disneyland. Wait, the reason that's so funny is because there was no thought. It was just like Disneyland.
That's my happy place. Like,
okay.
So I describe it like I have the suicide ideation, as in I'm not planning on killing myself. It's just the thought of not wanting to be alive every day. And it's not a thought that ever leaves my mind. And if I had, like, even if I'm having like such a good time with somebody, because you can have great times but still be depressed. If I'm having such a great time with somebody, but I had an on-off switch, like a little light switch that I could just pull to like just shut my life down, I would usually want to pull it. But Disneyland, I don't want to pull it.
Why? What about that?
It's just a happy place for me. the history behind it, everything that goes behind that place, and like, that's just how I live my life. I believe in magic, and I want to believe in happily ever afters and like true romance and things, and that place just makes it possible.
Is it unrealistic to want that?
I don't believe so. I think it's hard to find, but I don't think it's unrealistic.
What would you have to do to have a life that made you feel that way?
I don't know. I'm still.
That's what we're trying to figure out.
I'm trying to figure out.
Amen to that. I get that.
That's what I'm searching for.
Well, I like that you know that you have to fight for it. You have to fight for it. You're already ahead of so many people by knowing that having that. You also have panic disorder and anxiety. When were those first diagnosed?
So, I mean, technically, I've had it for a really long time, but being diagnosed with it, I think I was, I want to say maybe a couple of years ago that I was actually diagnosed with it. I didn't know what it felt like. I've heard other people saying, oh my God, I'm having a panic attack. And I was just like, I don't understand that. Like, can you just breathe and like calm down? And, you know, and like, I would try to be there for them. Like, okay, what can we do? Like, what can help calm you and stuff? And, you know, most people just they're in a panic. They don't know. And I started going through that, you know, a couple of years ago, and I was like, oh man, like, my heart felt like it was gonna like beat out of its chest. Like I felt like I was like literally gonna die or something, and it would just get really bad. There were so many little things that just started becoming triggers where like I would just start having a panic attack out of nowhere. I would take like an Uber to work or like into town or something, and like just being in the car, I would like, okay, hold on, you're okay, breathe, like you're safe, you're in a car, like you're just going to work right now, like you're, like I would have to talk to myself like this and like do these breathing exercises, and like through all of the therapy that I've been through, they basically teach you coping skill after coping skill after coping skill. And for me, when my anxiety is that high, like nothing really works. Not even like medication that I've been given, like it kind of numbs it a little bit, but I'll be awake for days with anxiety. So it's still it's a struggle.
You have slight OCD and ADHD, is this true?
So yeah, I do have ADHD, and then slight OCD, yeah.
And you have the PMDD. I'm least familiar with that one. Can you explain that?
So PMDD is basically, it's kind of like, you want to think of PMS times 100.
Okay.
So it's PMS basically. It's like something that's like grown out of PMS. So with PMS, obviously, both of them, you're going to have like cramping, and they should be normal cramps, not like debilitating cramps. If you're having debilitating cramps, that could be something else. Get it checked out. Basically, like you can have like a little bit of depression and things like that, but with PMDD, you're gonna have like really bad depression. You can have really bad mood swings. You can, like you can have suicidal thoughts and stuff, and it gets really bad. So I started having PMDD when I was, I think I was 13 or 14. And I would be awake all night crying, bawling my eyes out, like for 2 to 3 days out of every month. So we recognized that it was a hormonal thing. It was something with my period. And, you know, I'd just be up like crying to my mom, I don't want to live, like I hate life, like, you know, and I was a teenager, like really wanting these things. And ever since, it's just been this cycle to really try and hone it down and try to figure out how can we get the hormones and the all the other chemical makeup of the mind like to just work together and like be on a better scale. because everything's just been so hectic.
Major depressive disorder with mixed features. cPTSD, panic disorder, anxiety, PMDD, slight OCD, ADHD, DID.
Yeah.
That's almost all the letters in the alphabet.
I know.
Out of those 8, which one is the hardest for you?
The depression.
Yeah, I figured that would be it. I want to ask you a question about the DID. It is often confused with borderline personality disorder, BPD. Have you ever had that discussion with your psychiatrist or ever been diagnosed or misdiagnosed with BPD?
No.
No. So it's never come up on your radar?
It's never, They, I mean, I feel like professionals would know the difference. Like a lot of people don't know the difference, but I feel like the psychiatrists that I've talked to have been very well educated, and the ones that know about DID, because that's usually what that's what I'm searching for. If I'm gonna find a new psychiatrist or a therapist, I'm looking for someone who knows about DID, who's been educated in it, just so they're not going in blind. Yes.
I know this is the first episode, and in the following episodes, we're going to go into more depth about your co-occurring disorders with DID, so the depression, cPTSD, etc. What will viewers get after watching the coming episodes?
I can only hope to give more education and kill more stigmas and just really help other people who are just as desperate and searching for an answer as well. That's all I can do.
Yeah, you're doing it. You're doing it. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.